on AM 560 The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Kash Patel was widely rumored to be in line to be the deputy director of the FBI. So you can imagine the hue and cry when it was announced that Trump had nominated him to be FBI director. Oh, yeah. The Beta Boo Birds over at MSNBC were out in force.
To me, Kash Patel, and I don't say this lightly, is the most dangerous nominee that we've seen yet to our democracy.
Kash Patel as FBI director would be like if you crossed Alex Jones with J. Edgar Hoover in terms of just how much he would want to ignore precedent and the constraints that have been put onto the FBI over the years. With all of the conspiracy theorizing, all of the eagerness to fan the flames of the worst instincts of President Trump.
Where does all of this fit in with January 6th? January 6th is the juxtaposition of the Constitution. Many think it was treasonous. And for him to be one of the conspirators, this is now left to the court of public opinion, because you're going to have a lot of senators, Republican senators, who are loyal to President-elect Donald Trump. And they will close an eye, turn ahead.
This is the world we're living in now, of these preposterous and yet extraordinarily dangerous picks. What you see Trump doing, and it's kind of strange to use this word about Donald Trump, but he's methodically appointing people who will completely destroy any limits on his power.
That last dink was Tom Nichols for The Atlantic. Yeah, I know we've seen this routine before. We pretend that Trump wasn't president for a term, right, and we just create this threat to democracy that he presents despite our actual lived experience with him. Well, it's sort of the same thing with Kash Patel. I mean, can somebody over at MSNBC get one of the flunkies to do a little research and come up with some basis to make those claims? Because he has been a federal prosecutor. He's been a public defender. He served as the deputy at DNI to Rick Grinnell in Trump 1.0, the chief of staff to acting DOD Secretary Chris Miller in Trump 1.0. I mean, he has a history. He has a professional record. So why don't you just pick it apart for me? No, because that's not what it's about. It's about his position with respect to the FBI and with respect to some of these other matters and the aggressive public pronouncements he's made, which, frankly, are on the mark from everything I've heard. And, one of the clips that's making the rounds is this exchange he had with Steve Bannon a year ago in December of last year, where he talked, and this was when Bannon thought he was going to be CIA director, so it shows what everybody knows. Anyway, if Trump won, talking about the reckoning, the accountability for all that has been done in these law enforcement agencies that runs afoul, perhaps, I think almost certainly, of the law in some instances, certainly of professional standards.
Criminal prosecutions. Kash, I know you're probably going to be head of the CIA, but do you believe that you can deliver the goods on this in a pretty short order the first couple of months so we can get rolling on prosecutions?
Yes, we got the bench for it, Bannon, and you know those guys. I'm not going to go out there and say their names right now so the radical left-wing media can terrorize them. But, excuse me, the one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go-around is we got to put in all America patriots top to bottom. And we got them for law enforcement. We got them for intel collection. We got them for offensive operations. We got them for DOD, CIA, everywhere. And the one thing we will do that they never will do is we will follow the facts and the law and go to courts of law and correct these justices and lawyers who have been prosecuting these cases based on politics and actually issuing them as lawfare. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice. And Steve, this is why they hate us. This is why we're tyrannical. This is why we're dictators, because we're actually going to use the Constitution to prosecute them for crimes they said we have always been guilty of, but never have.
So you go to courts of law, you follow the law, you're bound by the Constitution. That doesn't really seem to stack up with the caricaturing of Kash Patel that the left is doing. For more on this, please be joined by James Gagliano, retired FBI supervisory special agent and a doctoral candidate in Homeland Security at St. John's. Also serves as mayor of the village of Cornwall on Hudson, New York, and on the board of directors of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. Jim, thanks for joining us, and appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, first of all, happy Thanksgiving. And wow, that's a heck of a supercut that your producers put together regarding some hypocrisy and fear-mongering. That was an interesting supercut.
Yeah, well, what do you say about the nominee?
So here's my position on this. The Senate has a constitutional role in this, and that is advisement and consent of political nominees from the executive branch, from the president. And look, if not for Harry Reid, blowing up the nuclear option and, making it so that you just need a simple majority and not 60 votes to confirm, look, Kash Patel can't lose 4 Republican votes because obviously the vice president casts the deciding vote in a tie. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, Danny. You know me. I don't waffle. I'm agnostic on him right now. I was hoping that it would have been a former Bureau employee, a former 1811, a former FBI agent. We've only had one in the history of the Bureau, which is, 116 years old. But I want to see the confirmation hearings. I think Mr. Patel has a lot of good things going for him. You pointed out at the top of this that he's held a number of positions in the former Trump administration. And I think he's got to be careful. I listened to the interview, the entire interview. You just played a clip of it, of his conversation with Steve Bannon some months back. And he's got to be careful because he does say some kooky things. The thing about taking FBI headquarters and turning it into a museum to the deep state. So I'm agnostic, and I'm going to watch the confirmation hearings.
I was going to play you that soundbite, but I don't know. You seem to be very familiar with
well,
that.
He wants cops to go out to make a point.
Yeah, but he wants cops to go out and to be cops. I mean, he's not going to clean house when he gets in, is he?
Well, I don't
think lower level.
The one FBI director that did that, and it was during my tenure, was Louis Freeh, where basically he went into FBI headquarters and he did clean it out. He sent a lot of the supervisors, the GS-14s, the GS-15s, the section chiefs, assistant section chiefs, he sent them back out into the field to do their job, to investigate crimes. You need a headquarters unit. You need a centralization place. You don't need it to the tail to wag the dog. And unfortunately, since the era of James Comey, and obviously in some instances the current director under Christopher Wray, you've seen FBI headquarters directing things. Instead of managing, assisting, administering, they've been directing things. And I think that's the thing that Kash Patel says, I'm going to change that. He can't burn the place down, but he can't continue to do what we've been doing for now about 8 years, which is whistling past the graveyard.
Yeah, and I mean, the stories that just continue to pop out, FBI abuses and also FBI blind spots. There's an FBI special agent who was just arrested for raping multiple women after luring them into a tattoo shop in Maryland. I mean, so, it's so it just, I know, big agency, you're going to have bad apples, you're going to miss things. I get it. Everybody understands we don't live in a perfect world, but it's just sort of the one after the other that are evidence of no quality control and evidence of real politicization, which we've, of course, talked a lot about. And you just feel like there needs to be a culture change in that institution and in so many other federal agencies for that matter.
Well stated, Dan. And I'll go back to this. When James Comey was appointed, here's a little anecdote for your listeners. He showed up at FBI headquarters the first day, and he called in all the executives that are at FBI headquarters down in D.C., and he's sitting on a stool, and he's got an open collar blue shirt on. something that former FBI directors, the 7, Senate-approved ones before him, including his direct predecessor, Robert Mueller III, would never have done. You wore a white shirt, a button-down, striped rep tie, and a jacket when you were at FBI headquarters. Now, some of your listeners will go, oh, come on, Jimmy, it's just what he wore to work. But he made a point of saying the culture is changing here. And his direct quote was, I thought the shirt color was an early way to set a different tone. That different tone has got us off track. Our job is to follow the evidence bereft of fear or favor and get the bad guys. And instead, we are focused on so many things. And a lot of that is the splintering of agents. They've got a number of these groups, a diversity advisory council, and there's like 18 different things that you can become a member of. Let me give you a couple names of them. The Black Affairs Diversity Committee, the Middle East Advisory Committee, Persons with Disabilities Advisory Committee, Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee, the Women's Advisory Committee. Now, none of those things in and of themselves are bad things. But when you divide the workforce, you focus on their immutable differences, the characteristics that they don't have any choice of, and you splinter it and you don't focus on going out and making cases. That's part of the breakdown. I do believe that Kash Patel is somebody that wants to blow that part up, and for that, I'm wholeheartedly in agreement.
Well, the other thing, too, is I know you said you want a former agent, and of course we talked to a lot of them on this show who have great admiration for, including yourself. And we know is that people that had great careers and did great things in service of protecting people, and that's wonderful. But with respect to where it is now, I mean, I can understand where, especially after his experience in the first term, where Trump wants, look, I got to have at the top, the top of these agencies, these key agencies, I got to have people that I know 100% they are disruptive innovators, to borrow from Clayton Christensen. They're on the reform bandwagon, and they are not beholden in any way, shape, or form to the establishment. They're not looking for their next thing. They're not looking to be a contributor to Fox News after they served a couple years as FBI director. I mean, I think there's a real sort of learned response you're seeing with the appointments, including Patel.
I agree. I think you make a great point there, but I think we got to settle, as we often do, on something in the middle. That means the selection of a deputy director. That person has to be somebody boots on the ground, who's made cases, who understands the FBI culture and its mission, and can help guide.
Well, who should that deputy director be?
Well, I mean, I could give you a list of names. I mean, I truly could. I mean, there have been a number of retired senior executives, Adam Lee down in Virginia, who did a great job as the boss of the Richmond office. There's a number of people.
The Richmond office. That's where they were That's where they were targeting people going to Latin Mass.
Not when Adam Lee was there. He was already retired and gone. But that's a great spot. Nice pickup there. But no, I think there's a number of people. But it's got to be a bureau person, a man or woman who has served as an 1811 in the bureau.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think you're seeing that with some of what he's trying to fill in the other agencies too. I think there is that recognition, even with the prospect of Bondi at DOJ and experienced DOJ litigators as her deputies. No, so I think that's a fair point. I think it's an important point, actually. James Gagliano is a retired FBI supervisory special agent, doctoral candidate in Homeland Security at St. John's. Also is the mayor of the village of Cornwall-on-Hudson, New York, and on the board of directors of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. James, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. They're a bank with roots right here in Chicago.